I pulled this clip from a Stream Team Live Beekeeping Chat video we did with Gus Mitchell back on April 20th of 2022, where he described how you do flyback splits. Interesting information. I hope you enjoy it.
From a backyard even to a sideliner perspective, it's good splitting methods. I recommend the flyback split method, where you utilize the colony's resources to make you good quality queens. What you're essentially doing is you split off the old queen and you make us basically make the rest of it a cell builder. Then, while all the resources are still together as one unit functioning, you create all the cells. Then, once those cells are made, you split this down. You don't split this into nukes and let these little two frames of bees try to make a queen. So the flyback split, you take your empty box and bottom board out there and you set it down. You slide the other hive over the original. The hive is here in its original spot, guys.
Sure.
Slide it over, put the new bottom board, new box down in the old spot. This is where the foragers are coming. You get in this hive, break it down, you find that queen, you find the frame she's laying on, and you pull her over into this box. And you give
Into
her
the
a frame
one
of food
into the new box, you move back to the original spot.
in the original spot.
Okay.
You give her a frame of food and you give her the rest foundation and you feed them. She's going to take the entire workforce. They don't you don't have to have a lot of if a lot of bees don't go in there, don't worry about it. There's only one frame of brood. They don't have to cover a bunch. She's already laying. She's going to recover, and you've knocked her back so far. You've just completely knocked her on her bottom. You've knocked the swarm right out of them. So these workers are going to come back and they're going to change their roles and they're going to start drawing comb because they desperately need it because she don't have nowhere else to lay. Now, in the meantime, all your foragers that were in this colony that you pushed beside, they've now flown back. This is why it's called flyback split. And this is all based off of GM Doolittle methods. You know, he talked about different things, but brilliant man. So now all you have left are nurse bees, all the food resources, all the brood resources, all the young bees of the colony. You've essentially made a cell builder. They're going to pull you out beautiful, large cells, well fed cells, well cared for cells. Now you can split this hive down however much you can get out of it, two brood, one food, and a cell. And you're just going to continue to split it down. And you can leave these in the same yard. You don't have to haul these anywhere. These are nurse bees. They're not going anywhere. You do this 10 days after you make it, because after 10 days they're going to be capped and they're going to be sturdy enough that you can cut these cells out and you can move these cells. So you split them down. Now you're left with some amount of brood left in the spot that you put the original hive in. They've been there for 10 days. You're going to have a little bit of foragers flying back to this spot now. So take that into consideration and use a little bit less bees when you make up the one nuke that's now sitting in this spot. So you can turn one into six.
That's
And
awesome,
you,
man. I like
you roll
that.
your dice. But now you're not going to keep all these guys. You can combine these back in. You're going to pick the best queen. Selection is extremely important, even in the backyard stage. So let these grow a little bit, and the ones that are lagging or ones that don't do well, you're going to pinch your head off and combine it back in. If you don't want this many hives, then you don't have to use two brood. You could use four brood. Whatever your goal is as a beekeeper. If you only want to make three increases off of that, then make three increases off of that. But mind you, if you want three, you need to make at least four or five because you're only going to get 70% back. Now you may get lucky and get 100% back, but it's not very often. And you can always combine. There's nothing wrong with combining. It's one of the most undertaught techniques there is in beekeeping. Everything isn't sacred as these colony counts goes. You can combine these bees and utilize them
Hmm.
and pinch your old queen. And if you have one great colony that you want to raise these cells off of, do this, do the other colonies at the same time. When you go into these less desirable colonies, cut the queen cells down and use the queen cells from your best colonies. But
Um,
it's good for the backyard beekeeper that doesn't have out apiaries. Now you,
yeah,
you don't have to move these nukes. They're good to go, and you can always just combine back in, guys.
that's one thing
Um,
a lot of new beekeepers or backyard beekeepers don't understand, that you can do splits and keep them on site. A lot of people think you have to move them 2 or 3 miles away and then bring them back, but that is not the case. Don Bearden has a great question. And do you use newspaper combines, or how do you combine them back?
I do not.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take a colony very long to realize that they're queenless. If you're not going to have fighting. So you have a nuke that has a new queen. She's got all these good smells coming off of her. She's laying. She's doing well. And you combine this nuke into a colony where you've killed the queen. You're not going to have any problem.
Well, I've got my mentor, my original mentor back when I started. He does a lot of that kind of stuff, and man, he'll just smoke them really good and just dump them together, and they
That's
do
what
fine.
Mr. Hodum says. He says you smoke the top one up and you smoke the bottom one down and you smoke them until they can't breathe and then stick them together. And by the time they can breathe, they're going to get along.
I've I do a lot of mixing, and like I've never had any real issues. They figure it out, man. I mean, they just do. It's
Yeah, I
amazing.
mean,
You'll go dump a drone layer or a laying worker. You'll dump all the bees out on the ground, come back in a day or two, and they'll all be collecting where the hive was. The forage is coming back, but then you come back in a day or two if there's other colonies around, and they're all gone because they've gone into other colonies. The bees figure it out,
I mean, I was using this method up to 60 plus colonies and still selling some nukes and stuff before I ever even grafted, ever even thought about grafting.
Yeah.
Because you're making well-fed queen. It's all about the cell builder. And if you can do this method, you pretty much learn about a cell builder. So
let me ask you a question about that though. With your foundation, if you use plastic foundation, now do you cut the cells? You just take the frame and, like, if it's got cells on it, you just take a frame out and move it into a nuke.
Well,
I mean, how do you do that?
You're going to waste a lot of cells that way. If it's wax foundation, of course, it's very easy to cut them out. If it's plastic foundation, it's a little trickier, but it's not impossible and it's not as hard as you'd think. Imagine in your mind a classic keyhole where it's narrow and long at the bottom, then it opens up to a round opening at the top. So you'll take your hive tool or a pocket knife on this plastic foundation, and around the top, you're going to come up above it and you're going to cut a round circle. Then you're going to prise this cell off very gently, and you may end up exposing at the back. And you probably are. At the very least, you're going to expose the royal jelly. You may expose the larvae, but all is not lost. If you do, it's not a big deal. Anyway, you fold this flap back over the bag and just fold it over, and you're good to go.
You need to go stick it in your new colony, wherever you want to put it. Man, that's dude. Oh man, I could talk all night. Somebody from Texas said, he doesn't have to work tomorrow, can go all night. Well, I do have to work tomorrow. So yeah, we're not all in that situation. But dude, I mean, how many more tricks do you have? We gotta have you back on here.
Well, yeah, and invite me back. We'll talk. I love talking bees.